The inevitable day has finally come where I've decided to tackle Brandon Sanderson's The Way of Kings. Hi, I'm Paulina. I'm a huge lover of fantasy and romantasy, and Brandon Sanderson has always been very intimidating to me, but this book has been sitting this book has been sitting on my shelf for years, and honestly, whenever I see a little book like this, I get intimidated. Like, it's literally like a size situation, like little in height, thick on the side, very intimidated. To put it in a way that my girlies understand, Brandon Sanderson's books always just seemed very boy to me. I like a girl book, like a book for the girls, and that was like one of the reasons I was very pushing myself back from reading it. But initially I was planning to do a video where I read 3 first books from like 3 famous epic fantasy series that like didn't end up working out, just because reading a Game of Thrones took so long that I just felt like reading everything else was going to take long as well. Nevertheless, I gotta be so real with you guys. I am filming this intro after reading this book because I suck at filming an intro. I always forget, I forget, and then time goes by, and then I think I've already filmed it, and I'm looking back to my footage and I have not filmed it, which is why this is happening now. The TikTok videos on Brandon Sanderson have surfaced on my For You page. Mind you, TikTok is getting banned in the US tomorrow, so whatever. And people have been saying how like the fourth wing girlies are like finally making the switch to Brandon Sanderson, and I was convinced to pick this book up. I'm part of the migration. Okay, so you may be asking before we dive too deep into reading, what is The Way of Kings about? As someone who has finished the book, I can't even tell you exactly because it's just about so much. This event has happened called the Final Desolation. Like, I still can't figure out what essentially it means. Like, kind of like an end of the world situation, or like, but not like, this is not like dystopian, like not an end of the world situation. It's just this event where these like, is it godly creatures? I kind of want to say they're godly creatures called the Knights of Radiance disappeared. Well, not disappeared, they're described to have abandoned humanity, or is it even humanity? They consider humans, I guess they're considered humans. They have abandoned humans, and like times of the Knights of Radiance were like very different than they are when the book takes place. There's a lot of magic in the universe, and like men were more honorable. That's like a really big theme in the book, is honor. There's so many characters in this book, but arguably there's 4 main ones. My favorite character, and I think the world's favorite character, Kaladin, who is a surgeon turned into slave. Then there is Shalyn. Is that her name? Shalyn? Yeah. So Shalyn is this really, really smart girl, redhead, who is trying to become a peer of this really well-renowned scholar, a ward of the scholar. Then there is an assassin who hates that he has to be an assassin. And then there is a prince who loves to fight, loves to be in war, but starts to mature throughout the book. I'm so excited to honestly just rewatch the footage of me reading this book. And I will talk to you guys at the end of this video. So I'm maybe an 1/8 of the way through this book now. I've made it to part 2. I am enjoying it so far. I'm not a huge war reader, and there's a lot of fighting, a lot of war. It's very boy, but Brandon Sanderson truly, his prose is unmatched. I'm just enjoying reading a book that is so well written. The descriptions are amazing. The way he introduces every character, it's so satisfying. So I am just itching to keep reading through the book, even though the context, the content of war isn't that interesting to me. There are themes that are showing up and certain subjects showing up that I recognize are going to be a really big deal later on, so I'm really excited for that. I also dig the amount of characters in this book and how we're constantly switching point of views, and this is such an interesting world. Just like trying to wrap my head around like what what is the truth? What is going on? What kind of world are we living in? I'm about to get in bed. I'm in a fresh set of pajamas, freshly washed, freshly brushed teeth. I'm gonna drink some tea. This is an unmatched feeling. Like, there's nothing better than getting in bed fully clean, reading a book. It is the end of the semester. I have wrapped up some homework today. Don't want to think about it anymore. I know you guys know what I mean, like how excited I am to read right now. I just love this feeling. And this book is crazy. Oh my goodness. I wish I was recording at like the last few chapters because they were just so like I kept going like this. Like I was reading alone and I'm like, that is how wacko of plot I just experienced in this book. The plot has never plotted like this before. I'm shook, stunned, like processing. All I'm thinking right now is 9:30. I actually need to be in bed right now. Oh my goodness, no. I have another hour. Oh my goodness, I can finish this book. I can finish this. I'm gonna cry. This is so good. Like, we're starting off the year so strong. Why am I crying? Why is this book so good? I've never read any. I've never read anything this good in my life, and it's like eliciting tears from my face. It's like not even a sad part. It's just so like I'm just stunned. I have this much left. Like the end is near, and I don't know what to do because like people are so up about the reading order. After reading this, like, of course I want to just jump into the second book of the Starlight archive because I'm like, I need to know what's going on. But everyone's like, oh my goodness, you need to read the Mistborn trilogy first. And I told myself, like, I'm not buying books in 2025. And like, I made a mistake. I'm gonna have to break that and buy Mistborn because like, oh my goodness. People are saying read Mistborn, like you're supposed to read Mistborn first and then like dive into The Way of Kings. Now that I read The Way of Kings, like I need to continue the series. I need to know what happened. Like I'm just not gonna get enough sleep. I need to finish this. There's just no other way. There's like no other way to do this. This is ridiculous. Brandon Sanderson, you cheeky little guy. The fact that I had this book on my shelf for years. I had this masterpiece on my shelf and I like didn't read it. Am I ever gonna recover? Am I ever gonna recover? Hello there. So now that we have watched me read this book, let's chat. I think I finished this like a week and so ago, and I really struggled figuring out like how I'm going to film and release these videos. Everyone knows the Cosmere universe, like the reading order is very mismatched, and like you are supposed to technically start with Mistborn. I don't think it really matters. And so I was thinking like, oh, I'll like also read Mistborn and put it in this video, but then I kind of want to read Mistborn and like have its own video, but then I feel bad because The Way of Kings is like on its own. Also feeling a little insecure because this is a spoiler-free video because I want the people, I want both people who have read Way of Kings or haven't read Way of Kings to enjoy this content. The important part that we have to talk about right now is how this was easily the best book I have read in my life. Best fantasy. It's hard to, okay, tangent. It's hard to rate different books against different genres, so definitely #1 fantasy I have read in my life. Oh my goodness, why do I get emotional when I read when I start talking about The Way of Kings? Everyone on TikTok has talked about how The Way of Kings and like Brandon Sanderson's universe is easily some of the best fantasy ever. Like arguably the #1 fantasy ever. And like according to Google, I have read the #1 fantasy. Like the one with the dragon, the Game of Thrones. I've read it and was not my cup of tea. And so The Way of Kings, though, people are like hardcore fans. And in my head, this is the #1 book in fantasy ever. And now I kind of just feel sad because all I can think about is I'll never read a book as good as this. Even in the Cosmere world, people are talking about how like The Way of Kings is one of the best books in the universe. And I'm like sad because I'm like, maybe I did mess up by reading this book first, but like I wouldn't have known. Like I had bought this years ago. Like I was just gonna read what I had. Like I didn't want to go out and buy another book, but easily one of the best books I've read in my life. And now I'm sad because I'll never read a book that is ever as good as this. And extra sad because the third book of the Fourth Wing series comes out next week, Onyx Storm. Like, okay, I don't know if this, okay, I'm putting this on, like this is just my yap session at this point. Fourth Wing, super good. Obviously not even half comparable to The Way of Kings. Like The Way of Kings was so good, but Iron Flame, like I didn't like it as much. And now I'm scared for Onyx Storm because in my head, like Onyx Storm has to be really, really good for me to continue the series because I have now this in my repertoire and I recognize likely it's not gonna be to the standard of Brandon Sanderson, but I'm just hoping it's gonna be good. And now I'm like kind of going into Onyx Storm with like a little apprehension. I digress. So what I have decided to do, this video will come out and then I'm gonna just read books in the recommended order and put videos out when it makes sense. So currently reading Mistborn, and when I'm finished with that trilogy, like that video is gonna go out and etc. But Brandon Sanderson, you cheeky little guy. You cheeky little guy, for bringing this into my life. And yeah, loved it. 5 stars. I feel like I need to explain why it's a 5 stars, and the reason for that is the plot was one of the most intricate, interesting plots I've ever read in my life. There was so much happening, and yeah, at the end of the day, like I still could not tell you half the names of half the characters, but the plot was just so deliciously good. It's crazy the way Brandon Sanderson has described his world with his words, that I can have this like 3D visualization of that universe in my mind. And he just has written some crazy, like crazy awesome characters who are so awesome. And I started seeing edits of them on TikTok and they're just so cool. You can tell there's a lot of POVs in this book, and not all of them have collided yet, but it's very obvious that they will. And obviously like some things have been spoiled to me because like the series is just so long and it's been around for so long as well. The way everything was written is amazing, and the characters and their backgrounds he dives into, and there's just the jaw-dropping plot twists he includes at the end for like the characters was just phenomenal. It's like some of the best I've ever read. If you're a fantasy individual, like you love a good fantasy and you haven't read any Mistborn books, not Mistborn books, any Cosmere books, like this is your opportunity. And like don't take the suggestion lightly, like go read them. So thank you guys so much for sticking around for this video, and you know what, we'll talk to you soon.